Right, greetings everybody. It is I, Umberrays, here to do a little chatting about Seifer. Because, as you may have noticed, if you are a Wotv player who frequently likes to go to Wotv calc, there's no Wotv calc data up yet for this guy. And yeah, Wotv calc, I mean, it's been a blessing for for all the time it's been around, and we all love it so, but some of the people who've worked so terribly hard on it kind of moved on. They have other stuff to do, so it's the updates are sometimes a little bit slower. Anyway, let's talk about Seifer. And recently we talked a little bit about him. We went over his kit, gave people a general look at him, and some people are bearing down a little bit on this guy, and I think that's not entirely fair. So let me briefly just pull up some websites. First off, Ultima, no, not the be-all and end-all. It has rated him as basically a double S character, basically the highest of tiers, and it put him generally pretty high. He is a newer character, and we're going to talk about why in a second. And on this weekend, we're going to be doing a new team building video where we're going to specifically be looking way more at Luciel and Seifer, because they've been really interesting. And I know I said I wasn't going to do this anymore, but the video is also going to focus on Sephiroth and talking about why I think some people's evaluation of how good Sephiroth might be long term is a little bit maybe not the most accurate. But anyway, let's also talk about Game 8. Game 8 has also done their character ranking for him, saying that he is basically a double S tier by theirs. Originally, it was rated a little bit higher, but I think they've kind of dipped him a little bit down. So why is Ultima more valuing this character than Game 8 is? Well, of course, reviews are personal opinions. Some people are really excited to have Seifer in the game. Some people are really excited about his abilities for certain matchups. And both of these are generally correct. Now, over the last few days, I've witnessed a bunch of videos from him just in regular arena to limited time content, or limited cost content, I should say, as well as just general high-end PvP no holds bar. And here's the thing, there have been a couple of different ways that I've seen this guy. First off, no Mono Dark. Mono Dark just does not exist. It is not a potential thing that this character will ever be running. He's basically being run with anything that is slightly compatible to him. Whether that's Gilgamesh, Sephiroth, any slashing based character seems to be paired with this guy, as well as Luciel, who is being paired with him generally a good amount, because as of right now, Luciel is still pretty good. And again, I don't want to touch too much on that here because Luciel is not the focus of this video. It's Seifer, but she is being paired with this guy, so the pairings are generally interesting. Also, one other weird thing that I did note was some evasion based stuff. That's right, Seifer has actually been built up with a little bit as an surprise evasion unit, which kind of works. I'm not going to go so far as to say that it's anything like revolutionary at this point. Nothing in Seifer's kit, as we talked about previously, really supports evasion at all. You're kind of just using it, equipment and whatnot, to bolster it, and then just being like, well, I hope the enemy can't deal with it, which isn't a super reliable way. So, all right. I think I've generally talked enough about this, but overall, Seifer is looking to be a very good unit. But I'm going to put that asterisk on this, that I don't think he's amazing, and it's just that general plateau effect that I've been talking about also in previous. Some people are saying that he is not good, and that's not true. Just because he doesn't have as much HP because of vision card setups or whatnot that we're demonstrating here today, doesn't mean that he's a bad unit. It just means that, you know, ever since the giant spike that was a couple of characters, Ashimont and Spring Joom, these powerful characters are having a lesser and lesser effect and more dealing with specific things. So, let me cut to one of the things that I think is very important to note about Seifer very early on in this video before we do test, is his healing down. There, like his aura effects and whatnot, his HP restorals, his re-raise canceling, all that is generally good, but one of the things that people should not underestimate is his AoE that effectively decreases healing power. For one reason, it's super important on JP right now, where you have Luciel, who is causing some issues and is definitely a character that is fairly prominently featured in high-end PvP teams. Luciel healing power and ability to stall out matches and just kind of win by virtue of that is pretty valuable. She also has generally really good healing. And one of the things that Sephiroth seriously fails about, is that one, his DPS is not high enough and not the right damage type. That's important to note to deal with Luciel too. But Seifer actually does have a really, really good ability that can actually mess with healing more times than once, and that's one of the reasons why he's generally better than Sephiroth in that case. Also, his DPS is more akin to some of the better DPSs that we've seen out there, meaning that essentially, while his HP doesn't seem incredibly good, his attack power is very, very strong and more closely related to some of the great DPSs we've seen recently. And that kind of puts Seifer into a very good spot, because again, as we've noted, one of the reasons why Sephiroth is so damn good is because he can cancel out all of those healing effects. Seifer can do it in a different style, and that's the key note here. So long as there's healing, Seifer is essentially going to be good, and good in a bunch of different metas. But he's good in a different way, where Sephiroth just cancels out completely. This is a reductionary effect, but it's a reductionary effect on a very good unit that is likely to get that attack off multiple times and on multiple units, allowing other units to potentially deal enough damage to flat out kill and not have healing really activate too terribly much. So that's essentially what we're looking at today, and that's one of the reasons why we're bringing A2 on this adventure, because she's one of the units that is heavily prominently featured and has a healing ability, which is really all we're super testing today. I'm not worried about it. I've had enough proof of concept. Of course, we'll show off some of the abilities in terms of, I guess, just general damaging capabilities. But really what we're interested here is healing down, because that is the thing that seems to be a thing that is making key collab units so valuable right now. And I don't really see healing going away. Healing is always a fundamental part of the game, and so long as you're messing, you have the chance to be stronger. And just one more way to put it, if you can heal better than the opponent's team right now, that can be enough to win a lot of matches and potentially outlast multiple waves of units. So, all right, really want to quickly highlight just stats. As we've noted before, HP isn't super high, but attack power is through the roof. Now, this guy doesn't have a ton of reincarnations, but I do think his stats are better than some people in comment sections are giving credit for. Taking a look at June here, we can get an idea of how she compares to Seifer with this setup, and as well Sephiroth. But Sephiroth is a little bit disingenuous. All three of these characters are generally a little bit disingenuous, just because my characters have been, these characters, or at least two of these characters, are max reincarnated. Seifer is not. Even with Trustmaster runes not being a factor, that is one of the big things here. Yeah, 14k HP on a strong DPS is always going to be very good, but Seifer can get more HP. So, alright, enough talking. I definitely have spent 9 minutes discussing it, the key points, because I think it's really important that everybody takes note of them before we get into the just kind of demonstration stuff, which is always good, it's always valuable, but more often than not recently, without a unit specifically like really feeling like they have too many problems, I'm not super concerned about DPS options right now, because there's more than enough attack power Again, something I want to talk about more this weekend on my team building video is essentially why Gilgamesh is just such a valuable character, and why I think that whatever the next mage is going to be the real next showstopper. Of course, there's always a chance we're wrong, but whatever. Anyway, so let's go over here. What we're essentially going to do is we're just going to put all of these units together and just use essentially a lot of their buffs and kind of just go from there. So let's take a look. All right, first off, one of his abilities, this is the AP recovery, accuracy, all that kind of buff that he gets on himself. Over here, we have the CT and slow effect. We're not super concerned about that, but just to see with this current build, again, Seifer, 50 faith, only 25% chance of slow. This is one of the things I was generally worried about. I don't think it has much properties in a competitive setting because it just isn't good enough. This aura style effect is pretty good, but not necessarily what we're looking for right now. And of course, his trust mastery, which is interesting for some things, but not really what we're focusing. So limit burst with the spell, as you can see, DPS is actually fairly comparable for what I would expect from a unit like this against these type of units who are already essentially getting buffs and whatnot. Limit burst is good. Single target attacks vary a little bit, and as we focus on more, cards that essentially power this character up, I do think we would see much better options here. Even taking a look at some of his AoEs, where we're getting defense shred, I did note that I think that's kind of interesting, and I still do. But yeah, this ability right here is the ability that I think is really good. Its DPS is pretty dang high for also giving that effect, and reducing the healing power on multiple units. There's a lot of times where units just group up, and this is more effective enough to actually get there. So this is what we're going to be focusing on doing. We're going to hit. And just a little bit here, 17% chance of happening. A little bit worrisome, but any kind of reaction block would essentially make this not a problem. Hit it. And just because right now we're just cast this. And we're going to pass over to A2. Now, one of the things I do want to test here, I just want to make sure this is the key heal. So if we do this, right now we're getting about 1,824 on her. 3,000 there, 3,400 there, as opposed to 4,500 on this. So just keep those numbers in mind. Gonna wait up until Seifer. And again, taking a look at that ability just to comparison's sake. Skip a few turns. And as you can see, healing power is pretty damn greatly reduced. And this is one of the things that I think is very, very valuable towards Seifer. Again, one of the key things that is making regular units nowadays so damn strong is the fact that their healing power is a big survivability factor. Even with high amounts of HP, essentially allows them more opportunities to get more healing in. This is a big thing. HP restorals off of hitting certain HP triggers. The Blood Sword, which is one of the, if probably not, the most commonly run weapon in Wotiv's history. All of this stuff essentially points to why Seifer is actually a little bit better than Sephiroth in a different way. Or at the very least comparable. Seifer's DPS is actually quite good, if not slightly better than Sephiroth, I guess I want to say. I'm going to say like even to Sephiroth, if not better. And it does feel better by the looks of some of the stuff I've seen. But the thing that I think kind of sets him apart is that where Sephiroth can effectively cut down a bunch of healing just with one ability, it is a one-off. You can't do that multiple times. Seifer can, and his AI seems pretty good about doing it so far. And given that, you know, there are teams out there running Luciel where Luciel can out-heal a single DPS a lot of the time, Seifer can probably shut that down in a bunch of different ways, even if he isn't the last characters. I think that is valuable to high-end players who are looking to counter a bunch of stuff, or potentially players who are just looking for something that's a little bit different from Sephiroth in terms of flavor, but still kind of gets a similar style effect. It's kind of interesting. Seifer from this collaboration and AC Sephiroth from the previous collaboration ending up feeling relatively similar, but generally end up the same. If there's one thing that I do think I kind of like a little bit more right now, for a case of why I like Seifer better than I like Sephiroth, at least from the data that I'm seeing, and is that if you look at some of the strongest characters that have also come out, such as Ashen Mont or Gilgamesh, who Gilgamesh is incredibly effective at melting Luciel, then I think that the pairing of Seifer is actually a little bit easier with those characters because of more recent vision cards, whereas recent Katana vision cards haven't super wowed me in terms of what they've been able to get done. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff that could be more said. I'll save some of it for the team building video, but I guess to really end the talking points for this is that I do actually really like Seifer for a bunch of different reasons. I'm not entirely sure how long his evaluation will be good, because, you know, Wotv characters end up generally being stronger, and there's always the possibility that a new mechanic that is outside of healing. But with that being said, it also would double back on my words of why I think Ace Sephiroth is also good. Re-raise doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and neither does general healing. As long as you can essentially counter that out, it's good. To another reason that we also have to talk about later. But anyway, that's all for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully this is giving you a bit of a better look at Seifer. Without the Wotv calc data, of course, some numbers are just gone. We can figure them out by calculations and whatnot. But overall, I think we're getting a generally good amount of data already on him being what he's like, and we'll discuss more about that in combination with other units on the weekend. So thanks so much for watching. Take care. See you later.